So this guy's a little bit good, isn't he? 17 years old, came in on a free transfer. You love to see it. So right now, of course, over on stream, we are doing the transfer window, strengthening this squad to attack yet another season of Building a Nation. So of course, join us right over there after you watch this. And if you want a sneak peek of a player that we're signing in the current window, an absolute monster, then ask me about Effie from Skins. It's also worth noting that today on stream, after we've done some transfer business, we're also doing a massive bumper Christmas quiz. And yes, there is a prize as well. It's going to be hilarious fun, as it was the last couple of years. So if you fancy a nice quiz, hop over to stream as well. We'll probably be getting the quiz going around about 2 o'clock, so it's not too late to jump over if you're watching this a couple of hours after it went out. The VODs of all of the streams will of course be available in their entirety over on the second channel, which is linked in the description. And also look, clean mic. Look at it. Look at the clean mic cover. I could lick it. Don't do that. I would not recommend. After the disappointment of missing out on the title last year by a single point, it has been a roller coaster of a year for MTK Budapest. Our on-pitch performances have been about as varied as the performances of my lighting setup. All clubs are always amateur. In a fun turn of events, it turns out my giant ring light has just died. Let's get stuck into some transfers, some ins, some outs, but let's just start with some outs. There hasn't been a lot. In fact, with the exceptions of a couple of players leaving for small fees to other Hungarian sides, it's mostly been loans. And especially as the January transfer window rolled around, we were able to get a lot more players out on loan than we were expecting, including finding loans for the likes of Humberto Garcia, Ilian Petroso, John Navia, youngster Angel, Pontus Lindgren, who you'll find more about in a minute, and even Regan Booty got himself a loan to Pakshi and got a chance to play against us at one point this season. There was also quite a large list of players who left the club on free transfers as their contracts had expired. The most notable one of those, I suppose, would be Istvan Bognar, who just, was on too much wages and we needed to freshen the squad up a little bit, so he moved on as well. But that's much of a muchness. What you're really interested in, of course, is who joined us this summer. Not a huge amount of massive money signings. In fact, arguably less than we had last summer, but I still think like we've picked up some absolute beasts. Still managed to sign Endrick though. More on that in a minute. First up is Ziad Larkesh, the 22-year-old Frenchman who was released by Fulham after a loan spell at Barnsley. We knew that we were probably going to lose Shimon Medjej at the end of this season as he was coming to the end of his contract and was starting to age out of the squad. So Larkesh felt like the ideal replacement to provide backup to Amadou Ndiaye. And he's done exactly that this year, making 30 appearances, a couple of assists in there as well from that left side, and a really capable deputy on very little money. Swedish centre-back Pontus Lindgren also joins us on a free transfer from Icelandic side KR. However, he joins the long list of centre-backs that have joined us to provide cover and haven't really been able to find any kind of opportunities in the team due to the sheer stability of our current starting players. Next up is Brazilian right-back Mailton, formerly of Chapecoense. Now, with us having a lot of loan players and sort of younger talents that weren't quite ready, providing backup last season to Christian Arrieta, we felt we needed a permanent signing that would be more than happy to sit in that role, and that is exactly what Mailton provided for us. Next, we have a slightly more major signing in the form of Gerald Tavara, a Peruvian international, 6 caps for the chappie here as well. Brought in to actually be a starting player in our central midfield, but he's found his game time somewhat more limited in the second half of the season due to the resurgence of Juan Pablo Diaz, who really just has said, no, this is my position in the team and I'm taking it. One of the areas that we felt that we lacked a little bit of depth going into this window was in the wide areas, and we needed some players that could operate in those positions, and the player we chose to operate in one of those roles was Mateus Vital, a Brazilian 27-year-old left and right winger who was last at Corinthians. Next we have Raymond Krollis, the Latvian international striker who's joined us on a free transfer from Valmiera. I mean, it doesn't really take much to explain why we like this lad so much, especially when you look at his statistics for the season. 16 goals for us despite only starting 11 matches. He still played 35 appearances too. Now, the original reason for signing Krollis was that we were trying to sign a new contract for Bobby Abduholikov. However, he was simply not interested. However, midway through the season, things changed and Bobby did eventually agree to a new deal, taking him through to 2028. Next to join us is Fabio Chiarodia on a 2-year loan deal from Werder Bremen. This was almost one of these too good to turn down type of transfers. The strange thing about this is that Werder Bremen are our new affiliate side. A senior affiliate, that is, along with Liverpool and NEC. But the weird part was, we didn't ask for a new affiliate. The board actually went and agreed and sorted this all out by themselves and then just told us about it, which was rather strange, and that's not actually ever happened to me before. Next is a very interesting sidestep. Igor Delibasic, the only player that we've actually spent an actual transfer figure on during this season. Some of the ones you'll see that we're signing for next season we did spend, but you'll see those over on stream in a minute. £57,000 from FK India for Igor Delibasic. We saw that reflexes, we saw that aerial reach, we saw his 6'4" frame, and figured for that kind of price he was definitely worth a punt. Now, he has actually played a couple of matches towards the very end of the season, as we just kind of threw him in there to give him a bit of a first team experience. But this is where things get very interesting. This is Jonathan Emmanuel Sagdal, a 17-year-old Norwegian right-back. We picked him up on a free transfer from Nordstrand. I could not believe our eyes. I couldn't believe our eyes when we saw this chappie here. Look at the mentals he's got at the age of 17. Technically, he's excellent as well with 13 tackling. He's not the quickest, but his physicals still are not bad. He's got that 5-star potential as well, agreed to a nice low contract. He's got wonderful CA. He's really just right there when you need him. The weirdest thing about him is that we got him in a scout report from our director of football, of all things. I don't know how or why he was available to see that, but nevertheless, Romeo Jozak, what an absolute legend finding this chappie here. But you're thinking to yourself, that's all cool and all, but what about that player you showed us at the start? Was that Endrick? That wasn't Endrick. That's the guy I'm about to show you. Let's talk about him, shall we? This is the best one of the lot. This is Philipe Novak. 18-year-old Belgian winger, come attacking midfielder, come striker, come pretty much wherever you want to play the damn guy. We signed him at 17 years old from Belgian side Tubiza. He's ridiculous. He's actually ridiculous. 19 determination, driven personality. He's training really well. He's got 10 out of 10 training rating now. He's just locked in at being an absolute don for us. And the best thing about him on top of that is he has 14 jumping reach and 16 heading for a winger who's 5'11". He has got a real spring on him, and it's really been very useful with him winning knockdowns in wide areas. His crossing and dribbling are very solid. He's got 16 passing and 13 vision. He's just a little bit of everything, basically. So let's talk about Endrick. He is a player that has been talked about, and I'm sure you will have heard about him ad nauseum since the start of FM23, so we decided to put together a deal to bring him to the club. Now, given that he is a player whose attributes can vary from save to save, we were very much hoping to get a better role on him than we did on Nathaniel Musu, for example. Or at the very least, we're hoping that he would be worth the money. And honestly, we've been massively disappointed with him. Yes, he has good consistency, which is a nice thing to have, but 5 finishing is absolutely appalling, and he seems to lack any kind of top-end potential that is going to see him go particularly far. And I guess that's the luck of the draw when it comes to players that will have things like variable potential. But much like Nathaniel Nwusu, with many parts of his attributes being left blank and filled in by the game when the save starts, it's not hard to see why sometimes that can go a little bit wrong. For example, in many ways, I'd heard about Endrick being quite a young star, but it seems that in this particular role of the save, we ended up getting one who was actually 29 years old, which is a little bit unlucky, but, you know, what can you do about it? But for me, he really does not live up to the hype. And if anything, he's just a little bit meh. But that's fine. We move. We've signed other better players. But let's move on from that and discuss tactics. And I say discuss tactics, but really it's just me telling you that actually we've made 0 changes to our tactical setup this year. We were extremely happy with the way things were shaping up and felt no reason to change anything because at the end of the day, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you for the 7 months.
I have outsourced my resub messages to AI.
Oh, good
Hey,
Lord.
streamer. I just wanted to let you know that I resubscribed to your channel for another month. Your content is always so entertaining and I love supporting you. Keep up the amazing work and I'll keep watching.
Viewer, thank you for your resub. I appreciate that. It helps me financially and makes my ego be bigger. So let's talk a little bit about how things have gone for us in the league this season. And things started extremely well. We hit 5 consecutive league victories off the start of the season and we're looking extremely composed, especially given that we were also playing in Europa Conference League qualifiers. Eventually that winning start was brought to an end, as usual, by Budapest Honvéd, who yet again failed to allow us to win. A few little stutters after that, including 3 consecutive league draws, one of which admittedly was against Ferencváros, but the one against Debrecen was a little bit less useful, and then followed up with a couple of good victories after that, allowed us to find ourselves top of the league after 12 matches. Currently sitting unbeaten with a 4-point gap at the top, exactly what we needed, but we'd been in similar positions before and we knew that it could all go wrong very quickly. Especially as not long after that, we pulled off a remarkable spell of matches where we drew 0-0 in 3 consecutive games. Luckily, good results against Vasas and Zalaegerszeg gave us a chance to get ourselves back to the top before once again surrendering it as we fell to a 1-0 defeat against Ferencváros. After Christmas though, we did bounce back with a 4-0 hammering away at Debrecen to get ourselves back into things, but still found ourselves second in the league, and Ferencváros had a game in hand with both of us tied on 39 points. We had still lost though, only 1 match in our first 18. This was immediately followed by yet another failure to win against Budapest Honvéd. I believe that's our 6th time playing them and we've yet to find the result. Thankfully, it was at this point that we finally got our act together, winning 6 consecutive league matches to pull ourselves right back up, including finally getting the catharsis we need by hammering Honvéd by 6 goals to 1. This great little run of matches, combined with Ferencváros dropping some points, allowed us to gain a 5-point lead at the top of the league with just 8 matches to go, and still just 1 defeat in our first 25 matches. We'd pretty much got all the tiebreakers going in our favour now, and we knew that we just needed to be stable over the final 8 games of the season to get our first title of the save and finally dethrone Ferencváros. But it was at this point when we got the bit between our teeth and just absolutely absolutely went for it and managed to win, from this point onwards, our next 8 league matches and won the league in style. I don't know how many league matches we actually won. I think, oh wow, I didn't even notice this. Holy God. After Christmas, we only dropped points in a single match, and that was why we went all the way. My God. And it really, really does show. The plus 62 goal difference, just 1 defeat in our 33 matches. And obviously, we had Molfehova sneaking into 4th spot there. We would have liked Pushkas to have potentially been the side as far as European stuff goes, but beggars can't be choosers. Unfortunately, things at the bottom did not go too well for 2 teams that were actually competing in Europe this season. Debrecen by winning the cup, but sadly were finding themselves getting relegated to the 2nd tier, and annoyingly took Budapest Honvéd with them. What is, though, a little bit more ideal is Bobby Abduholikov, 26 goals in the league. That is 2 more than last season in 5 fewer league matches as well. So he's really stepped up. But look at the assists as well. Pereira with 20 assists in the league. What a man. Radulic with the top performances. In fact, all 3 of our centre-backs were the top 3 performers in the league. In the 2nd tier, it looks like Kekschmet will be joining us back into the top flight along with Dios Jori. They're miles clear and have comfortably got themselves back to the top flight. That's looking fairly straightforward. Right then, for the first time in this save, we get to talk about us in Europe. In our first qualifying round against Apoel, we actually sadly drew 2-2 at home after conceding a 91st minute equaliser. Not the perfect start considering how well we played. That said, we made absolutely 0 mistakes when we travelled to Cyprus. A hat-trick from Mateus Vital allowed us to sneak through, quite comfortably in the end, by 5 goals to 2. We then got remarkably lucky with a 2-0 victory away at AEK. Yet again, a great away result, but mostly down to the absolutely abhorrent finishing of John Guidetti, who literally couldn't score a goal to save his life, allowed us a 2-0 victory. However, it is never that easy. After flying into a 2-goal advantage and going 4-0 up on aggregate, John Guidetti finally burst into life and then scored a hat-trick for AIK to make things very difficult for us late on, but we did still progress to the final playoff round by 4 goals to 3. When we were drawn against Braga, we thought we had no chance, but once again continued our incredible away run in Europe with a 3rd consecutive away victory in European games by 2 goals to 1, with Ngom and Ndai grabbing the goals. Ironically, we played a hell of a lot better in the home leg. However, it wasn't enough to actually create any kind of real result in the match other than a 0-0 draw, but it was enough to see us qualify for the group stages of the Conference League for the first time in the save, which is extremely good for us. And we actually ended up with a relatively favourable set of fixtures for our 6 games in the Conference League groups. The plan was basically, if we could get top 24 and make sure that we make some kind of knockout after Christmas, we'd be incredibly pleased, and given the fixtures, we felt that was possible. Especially as we got off to an absolute flyer away at Sutjeska Nikšić, one of the weakest sides in the tournament, as we got a 3-2 victory there. Unfortunately, despite roaring into a 2-0 lead at home against Maribor, a 91st minute equaliser cost us the win, especially as then things went a little bit mental, as we had a 5-5 draw against Feyenoord, one of the strongest sides in the entire competition. We'd thrown ourselves into a 3-0 lead after just 11 minutes. However, that lead was completely wiped out by the hour mark as Santiago Jimenez scored the first of his hat-trick, making it 3-3. We'd retaken the lead within a few minutes as Bobby made it 4-3. However, 2 more goals from Santiago Jimenez turned the entire game around, and Feyenoord found themselves 5-4 up in the 90th minute, but there was still time for Labassi and Ngom to pull out a 92nd minute equaliser to get us a 5-5 draw against Feyenoord. What is it with me, and if we go back very far, and having insane 5-5 draws against Dutch sides? If you remember, you remember. Thankfully, we then got one of the better results we'd had against high-flying Dnipro with a 1-0 victory away from home, a really composed performance getting us back to winning ways. This was then followed by an absolutely massive 7-1 hammering of Belgian side Charleroi. I don't know where it came from, but it was right there. Bobby got a hat-trick, Moses scored a couple, Pereira scored, and Ngom. It was an absolute monstrous result that really helped pull us right back up into things. But when we fell behind in the 72nd minute against Donetsk Streda, we were a little bit worried. However, we needn't have been, as Pereira and Bobby Abduholikov scored the goals that saw us win yet another match, and we ended up coming 4th. As the final tallies came about, we came 4th in our group, only behind Villa, Feyenoord, of course, and Vålerenga, which is a hell of a start to things there. Only conceded 11 goals, but we scored 20. We were the highest scoring team in the entire groups. All of this allowed us to completely skip around and found ourselves matched up in the round of 16 against 12th place Levski Sofia, which honestly went about as well as we could have expected it to. Goals from Pereira and Abduholikov gave us a 2-0 victory in Bulgaria. They did absolutely nothing. We were very, very confident about progressing to the quarterfinals relatively comfortably. Except then this happened. Levski Sofia beat us 6-0 in Hungary. It was one of those games, you've all had them, where it feels like there is just a result about to happen and you are purely a passenger in that. You could see that statistically they were actually fairly solid in this game. They weren't 6-0 good, but there were other Hungarian sides still competing in Europe. Ferencváros were, of course, our Champions League contender this year. They sadly only ended up in the Europa League groups, which is still a very solid achievement for them. However, the others, being Debrecen and Honvéd, did manage to at least get to the 4th qualifying round of the Europa Conference League, just as we did, except we progressed out of it, which still allowed us to gain some extra coefficient points. So not bad work. Ferencváros were handed an extremely tough set of matches, especially given that they were in the Europa League as well. And with only 2 matches to go of their 8, they found themselves sitting all the way down in 26th spot. But miraculously, miraculously managed to pull off an outrageously good 2-1 victory away at Selhurst Park against Crystal Palace, and then were able to win in Sweden against, at the time, 12th place Djurgården, to drop both of those two out of contention a little bit and pull themselves all the way up to 15th and allowed them to qualify for the knockouts of the Europa League. Unfortunately, that is as far as they went, as they were dumped out in the next round by PAOK, annoyingly, as in the first leg they got a very early red card which saw them lose the game by 3-1. Despite winning the home leg, it wasn't enough for them to turn things around. I think on another day they could have gone a little bit further, to be honest, but it's still nice to see them competing. But coefficient-wise, our total for the season is 8.375. This is more like it. Now that we're competing there too, you can really see that since the start of the save, in the 3 seasons so far, they've all been solid years. So we've still got 3 more years to get rid of off of this, and that's going to allow us to really move up. We're making so much more progress than we have in the early stages of any of these Building a Nation saves thus far because of Ferencváros. That being said, in spite of all the amazing progress we've made this year, we actually won't be gaining a single position on the coefficient charts, but what it really does do, as you can see here, is moves us massively back into the fight. Look how close we are to so many different nations above, all the way up to, well, currently they would be 17th place Czech Republic. I think next year we've got an enormous opportunity to move from 22nd up to probably 17th if we play our cards right, and that would gain us another spot in Europe, and that is a massive step in the right direction for this save. Now, I suppose I should probably come clean. The Endrick I showed you earlier in the video is not the real Endrick. Well, I mean, actually, he technically is the real Endrick in the sense that he is a man whose name is Endrick. He is Brazilian. This isn't a nickname or anything. This is actually his name, Endrick dos Santos Parafita. There's no nicknames on this chappy. We just use him on stream to mess with people if they constantly ask to see Endrick all the time. But at the very least, if you do want to cut price Endrick so you can say you've signed him, he is available for free, because as we all know, the real Endrick plays for Reading and a 74 caps for Ireland. Statistically, the biggest upswings are the wide players, and that was an area of the team that I criticised last year and felt that we needed to have more contributions of goals and assists, and boy did we get it, especially in the form of Enrique Pereira, with 13 goals and 25 assists this year from the Portuguese. We had huge, well, I say huge, we had bids for him from big sides in January. Not enough to trigger his release clause, but I suspect that this summer there's a very strong chance that unless we somehow find a new contract for him, he's probably going to leave. Labassi Ngom also massively upped his goal intake this year with 17 goals from an XG of 11, which is fantastic. 5 assists to go with it. The 21-year-old has been phenomenal this year and has really nailed down that spot ahead of Mumar Diop. Kapralik also increased the number of assists he was getting based on last year as well, with 16 as well as 6 goals. Wasn't quite the levels of Enrique Pereira, but still a really nice contribution to the team. But you'll note that he still underperformed his XG quite dramatically and definitely does need some work, given that Novak has come in and looked absolutely monstrous and could well take his position at this rate. The rest of the team has, generally speaking, been very stable. I would say the one area of the team that has been quite bad this year, sadly, is that of Nathaniel Nwusu. We've not seen a great deal of development out of him this year, sadly, and I think instead of me explaining what he's been like, I'm just going to show you a quick montage so you can see what we've had to deal with this year. This skin won't specifically, but Nathaniel, I know you're young, but do we really have to have this conversation about not handling the ball outside the area? We found a Chilean player whose name was Deborah. Like, his first name was Deborah. After falling awkwardly in a training session, and he's going to be out for 3 to 7 months. Financially, things are genuinely, you might not look like it, they are improving. But this year we have made a profit of £1.5 million. And that's with me trying to really be very careful about our budgets and transfers. And you'll notice that we do have a transfer budget of nearly 200,000 and our wage budget has remained pretty much the same. We've got roughly 11 grand of money around. So we can still bring in some players this summer. We do intend to as well, particularly as we have some other guys joining us as well already. But again, if you want to see those guys, hop over on stream and ask me about Effie from Skins. Trust me, you'll want to see the player. So I will see you over on stream for that. We're also, of course, doing the quiz. So look forward to joining you guys for that and all the transfer goodness, as there's probably it is the last stream before Christmas and the last video I'll be putting out before Christmas. So thank you so much for the support on the channel over the last month or so. It's been amazing, the amount of growth that we've had since the start of FM23. I'm extremely pleased with that, and I hope you welcome everybody that are new to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you'll continue to do so. So, happy nation building, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon.